Firebird artist, Mrs. Breshik here, filming from home. We're gonna go over a technique we're going to use to create our Zen place when we're, just as the artist that we looked at, Shinzu, did. We're gonna think about creating ourselves very small because we are small in comparison to the whole universe. So think about that place that you would want to go to and either just have that happy feeling or something that you might even want to share with your friends. You can see up on my, above my smartboard, there are examples of what other students have done. So you have an idea. There's a couple ways we can do this. The first way I'm going to show you is if we haven't done any watercolor yet, because some of us haven't, and I still want us to create our Zen place. So I'm going to show you that. I'm going to tilt my camera down and we will get going. So I'm just going to tilt my camera down. All right, so on your watercolor paper, your name and teacher's name and where you sit should be on the back. You can start with a pencil. I'm going to start with a marker because eventually we're going to go over it with a marker before we add paint. What's nice about the Sharpies is that they won't bleed when we add water to them. So you want to make sure that you're using the Sharpie that I gave you. So thinking about my Zen place, I have a couple Zen places. One of them is the ocean. So I think I'll go, and the other one is hiking along the river. So I think maybe I'll do hiking along the river because that's I think what I'll do. So I'm going to start first putting myself really tiny somewhere. So again, you can just use a stick person. And we're going to, again, just make somebody small. This will be you. So that would be me. So I'm really tiny, way off in the future. And I'm walking on a path. So I'm going to put my path here. And I'm going to add some other lines. So I'm going to add a horizon line because I think I'm going to be walking, this is going to be ocean. So I think I'm going to be walking along a path along the ocean. So I can draw some waves. If you want to draw the setting sun, remember the sun is not in a corner. And let's see, I'm going to add some other lines. So I'm just going to break up my space now with other lines. You can add trees. So again, we're just making simple lines. So let's say I'm going along a forest area, and so these are my trees. And I like to listen to some music, so I got some headphones on. And I'm gonna make a little note, because I like to listen to music or podcasts, something positive. So I'm just gonna make some music notes, which is really kind of cool. All right, so I have me walking. I still have a lot of negative space here where there isn't anything. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just double those lines. So I'm gonna make those lines thicker. I'm going to add a little bit more detail in the foreground, the ground that's closest, so those things will be a little bit bigger. I had some students draw a little playhouse or a fort that they like to go to with their friends, and that was really cool. The key with this thought is that you are making yourself really tiny because you are tiny when we think about the world around us. Add my leaves. We're doing, again, just simple lines and shapes. So as you're watching this demo, think about what it is that you want to do. You know what? I'm going to add some birds flying. I just love it when they fly overhead. Maybe, all right. I'm going to add, so I kind of filled up this space. I'm going to add a few more trees in my forest. Again, I'm just doing simple lines. On this space, let's see, I'm gonna make this line darker. So you're gonna double your lines. And again, when you're working with your Sharpie, in order for your Sharpie to last a long time, go lightly. So don't press down really hard. Just take your time and go really lightly. I think on here I'm gonna make some like boulders. So I'm gonna make some, I like the curved shapes. So I'm gonna make some curved shapes to indicate that it's maybe a rocky path. Make some boulders down here. I'm gonna make this line darker. So you kind of have the idea. So you're going to, again, with a pencil, or you can jump right to a Sharpie, because we have to go over it with a Sharpie. Once you have your scene down, your Zen place, you're then going to add your watercolors, and we're going to do it monochromatically. Remember, one color. So in order to do it monochromatically, I'm going to get my brush, and I'll probably give you a bigger black brush, get it wet. And remember, we're going to massage in our color. I'm going to use, I think I'll use this green. So your watercolors are dry. If you just stick your brush on top, it's just going to make colored water. You have to kind of massage that water deep into the dry pigment, the dried paint particles, to create paint. So you'll know when you've created paint because it'll feel thicker. It'll feel a little sticky. So you keep kind of massaging. Notice I'm trying to keep my brush in a brush form. I'm not doing this. I'm not cramming my brush down. So you're gently trying to get a lot of good pigment. And for the monochromatic scene, we want to show a variety. Just as our artist showed a variety, he used black. So he went from dark areas to medium areas to light by just adding water to his pigment. So I'm gonna just kind of splash some down. So I'm gonna make some dark, get some more pigment. I'm just gonna lay down some dark. I'm not really thinking that this represents the hill, but it certainly can. I just really want you to have fun with trying to create, and I'm going to do my horizon line. Horizon line is a horizontal line where the sky meets either the ocean or the sea. All right, so I've got my dark down, and now I'm going to rinse my brush, and I just have water. And now I'm going to pull the color that's already there into this space. So I'm not really putting my brush into the paint anymore. I'm just going to pull it into water. And you can make it really light, so I'm creating a variety of intensities, but I'm also still leaving the really dark areas. Notice that my Sharpie is not bleeding or moving. The Sharpie is staying right where I put it. So I'm going to make a little tree branches. If you want it even lighter, you're going to add more water. Okay, so you can kind of push the watercolor around on your paper. But again, we still want to see some very dark areas and then some medium areas by just changing how much water you're using. And I know you probably want to add blue for the sky if you're doing a sky, but again, we're doing it monochromatically. That means we're only going to choose one color. And so, and you can see I have a variety of shades. Now, if you want to leave some areas white, you obviously then don't put any water on it, right? Watercolorists a lot of times don't use any white. They use the white of the paper. So I'm going to try and use the white of the paper to show that I have waves. And the other thing that you can do is with your paper towel, if you want to add some little texture, you can just pull up, kind of blot the wet areas, and it will make an interesting texture on your watercolor paper. So this is my finished product. With watercolor, you really don't want to hold it up like this because, I'm going to turn it so you can see me, because it's wet and it might drip unless you want the drip effect. So you always want to keep it flat. So this is one way of creating your Zen scene, making you small in the universe, because we are, and just very simple lines, creating a place that you either like to go to or want to go to, and have fun with this. So this is when your paper is not already have color on it. If you already did your watercolor, then you're going to just draw right on your colored paper. Okay, you can try and use some of the dark areas to represent something or not, or you could do the exact same thing that I just did without the watercolor on it. So some of us have not watercolored yet, and I want to make sure we all get to this point. And you know, even if you have watercolor on your paper, you should have another blank paper that you haven't watercolored. So I want you to put your scene maybe on that and do another watercolor. And then on this one, we will do another watercolor technique called glazing. So I'll put that video on next. Anyways, enjoy being inspired by our artist, creating ourselves tiny in the scope of the universe. Have fun creating with watercolor.